He became a doctor, but no one showed. His family missed his med school. Graduation. What he did next changed everything. They say the proudest day of your life will feel like standing on a mountaintop, breathless and triumphant. Mine felt like freefall. My name is William. I'm 24. 2 weeks ago, I walked across a stage in a stiff robe, clasped a diploma that said doctor, and listened to a crowd roar for everyone else. The applause wasn't mine. Not really. That moment, the one I'd imagined while grinding through all-night study marathons and swallowing stress like bitter pills, arrived. Hollow, because the two people I needed most weren't there. The sun bathed the city of Daniel in golden light, the river slicing through it like a ribbon of shattered glass. Around me, new doctors embraced their families with teary eyes and cheap champagne. Their joy was loud, boisterous, visible. I stood at the edge of it all, clutching a navy folder with trembling fingers, scanning the crowd for a face. Any face that would look back with pride. No one waved. No one called my name. I checked my phone. Once, twice, nothing. Just the cold, mechanical glow of a screen that had stayed silent all day. I called anyway. It rang 5 times. Then my mother's voice answered, bright and breezy, almost too loud. Laughter echoing behind her, waves crashing, some upbeat tune playing distantly. Hi, honey. Everything okay? She chirped, as if I'd called to chat about groceries. I stared at the phone like it had slapped me. Yeah, just wondering where you two are. A beat. Oh, right. Her tone shifted like she'd just remembered she left the stove on. We're on that cruise with Christopher, remember? He got that new job offer. So we thought, why not celebrate? She said it like it was obvious, like it was fine. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. My silence was doing all the screaming. My younger brother Christopher had just landed a mid-tier sales job at a startup. 2 weeks in, he was already calling himself a rising shark in the SaaS world. And now, our parents were floating somewhere exotic with him while I stood alone at the finish line of a race I'd run mostly without them. My chest tightened, not from sadness, but from something older. Something rusted and sharp. I see, I said flatly, then added, without venom but with precision. Then don't bother showing up to my future either. And I hung up. No one called back. No message. No apology. Just the sound of champagne corks behind me and a voice in my head that whispered, you were always second place. That night, I walked into my apartment still wearing the suit. I didn't bother taking off my shoes. I went straight to the closet and pulled down the box. I'd packed it months ago, back when the quiet disappointment still stung, and I thought maybe, just maybe, a physical reminder might make them see me. It was filled with every proof of effort they'd ignored. My college acceptance, the med school letter, my match results. I'd printed emails, the ones I'd sent with excitement after making the dean's list, passing step 1, step 2. Tucked beneath the papers was a birthday card I once made them by hand, broke and hopeful, because love should have been enough currency. They never opened it. On top of it all, a note I wrote after Christopher got his 3rd car from them, while I rode the bus to overnight rotations. It read, if you ever wonder why I stopped trying to earn your pride, read everything inside, out loud. Maybe then you'll hear what I've been screaming in silence. I mailed it express the following week. No response. No confirmation. Just the familiar, echoing silence. I assumed it had gone the way of every gesture I'd ever made. Unseen. Until 2 weeks later. A knock on my apartment door interrupted the whir of the microwave reheating old Thai noodles. I opened it, expecting a delivery. Instead, it was my father. He stood there, holding the box in both hands like it weighed far more than paper and regret. He looked older, not in years but in wear. His shoulders sagged as if some truth had finally caught him. His eyes were rimmed red, his gaze unsteady. I didn't know, he said. My chest went still. Didn't know what? He lifted the box like an offering or a confession. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Why didn't you tell us? I didn't speak. I just pointed to the note taped to the lid. Go ahead, I said. Read it out loud. My father didn't move. He stood frozen in the doorway, hands clutching the box as if it might shatter or explode. His fingers were white at the knuckles, the same way they used to grip the steering wheel during rush hour traffic, jaw clenched, saying nothing until the frustration passed like a storm he refused to admit was happening. His lips were pressed into a thin, uneasy line, the exact expression he wore when bills came in higher than expected or when Christopher got caught sneaking beer into the house and he had to pretend he knew how to discipline. I didn't say anything. Just stepped aside, leaving the path open between us like a challenge. Eventually, he stepped in. Slowly, carefully, like the air inside my apartment might crack if he moved too fast. He sat down at the small table near the window, the same scratched-up table I'd eaten hundreds of microwave meals on while grinding through endless chapters of biochem. The same table they'd never once sat at, always too busy, too far, too uninterested. He placed the box down in front of him like it was a relic he wasn't worthy to touch. Then, without a word, he opened the lid. The first letter he pulled out was from Marlin University, my full-ride scholarship offer. His hands trembled as he unfolded it, eyes skimming the words. He didn't speak, just read. Next came the email from St. Caliste Hospital offering me a coveted residency spot in internal medicine. I'd highlighted the line, "We were impressed by your academic rigor and clinical acumen." He stared at the words like they belonged to someone else's son. Page after page, he kept going. Letters, emails, Dean's List notifications, awards. Each one removed with reverence as though he were a juror sifting through sealed evidence. And maybe that's what this was, an indictment. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He nodded slowly, lips moving silently, the way people do when they're pretending to understand but are still 3 steps behind. Then he reached the card. Handmade. Folded construction paper, smudged ink. A 10th anniversary card I made during my first year of med school because I didn't have money for anything else. Inside, I'd written that I hoped someday to be half the couple they were, back when I still believed in things like that. He stared at it longer than the others. I sat across from him, arms crossed, watching him try to make sense of years of neglect laid bare on a cheap wooden table. My chest was tight, but it wasn't fury that lived there now. It was quieter. More bitter. Something brittle that didn't crack, it eroded. And still, no apology. No admission. He looked up and said softly, "I didn't know you felt this way." I let out a sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a breath. Just the echo of years pressing against the walls of my ribs. "How could you not?" I said, voice calm but laced with disbelief. "You celebrated Christopher for every minor achievement like he won a Nobel. When I passed step 2, the kind of test people lose sleep and sanity over, you texted, 'Cool, buddy.' Then silence. A week of it. His mouth opened as if to respond, but nothing came. Just more silence. I made the Dean's List 3 years in a row, I continued. Mom said, that's what we expect from you. Not even a well done. Just an obligation fulfilled. Like excellence was my default, not something I bled for. He looked down at the box again as though it might offer him a rebuttal. You threw a barbecue when Christopher got hired to sell insurance, I said. A tent. Balloons. A freaking grill. When I matched at Alderwood, one of the top programs in the region, you said you'd try to make it to the white coat ceremony. Then didn't even call when you missed it. He cleared his throat. The sound was dry. Weak. Your brother, he's needed more help. No, I snapped, sharper now. He's needed more attention. There's a difference. My voice dipped, quiet but lethal. You gave him everything. Unasked. Undeserved. While I was surviving on vending machine dinners and 3 hours of sleep, you were helping him move into yet another apartment he wouldn't stay in, co-signing loans he wouldn't repay. I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. Do you remember when I called you? After Mom missed my white coat ceremony? He hesitated. Blinked. That was? New York, wasn't it? Daniel, I said. Flat. Final. I told you the date 6 times. She forgot. I stopped reminding you both after that. There was a pause. Heavy. Long enough to hurt. Then, slowly, he reached for the note I'd taped to the top of the box. Unfolded it. He read aloud. His voice was thin. Each word cracked like it had to fight its way out. If you ever wonder why I stopped trying to earn your pride, read everything inside out loud. Maybe then you'll hear what I've been screaming in silence. The note trembled in his hands. But I didn't. He placed the note on the table like it burned his fingertips. This time, when he looked at me, I didn't flinch. I wanted him to sit with it, to absorb the silence that had stretched between us for years, thick as fog, cold as glass. To feel the ache of being the child who never had to be rescued and so never got seen. I didn't know we made you feel erased, he said at last, voice soft but toneless, like he wasn't sure whether he was speaking to me or himself. My hands were locked beneath the table, nails pressing crescents into my palms. You didn't make me feel invisible, I said after a long breath. You looked right at me. And then you looked away. He didn't argue. His eyes fell to the papers again, evidence of a life he hadn't paid attention to. Then, without a word, he gave the box a gentle pushback in my direction and stood. Your mother should have been there, he murmured. We both should have. I'll tell her. I didn't answer. The air was heavy with all the things that had gone unsaid for too long. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. This came last week, he said. We nearly tossed it, thought it was just another advertisement. Then I saw the seal. I took it without speaking. My name was written in clean block letters, but the old address had been struck through, forwarded to this apartment by some underpaid clerk who had no idea what they were redirecting. Inside, a single thick card with the hospital's emblem pressed in gold. I opened it and read, William, your leadership, integrity, and clinical judgment have made you stand out. It is our honor to name you incoming chief resident. We're proud to have you. Over my shoulder, he read the words. His voice broke on the title. Chief resident? I nodded. A pause. Then he asked, more softly, more desperately than before, why didn't you tell us? I turned the envelope in my hands, still warm from being held. Because I wanted to see if you'd find out without me waving it in your face. He gave a small nod, the kind people give when there's no real defense left to offer. He turned toward the door, retreating into the safety of silence. I thought he would leave then. But he didn't. He stopped just short of the exit, hand resting on the knob as if weighing the cost of saying more. For a moment, he stared at the hardwood floor. Then he looked up, not with the guarded expression I'd grown used to, but with something raw, stripped down. Almost human. I know I've lost the right to ask you anything, he said slowly. But is there any way back from this? The question hit like cold water. Not because I hadn't imagined it, but because I never believed he'd ask. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was tight with 1,000 things I'd never said and didn't know how to. So instead, I walked to the window, peeled back the curtain, and watched as the drizzle turned the street below into a shimmering watercolor. The glass caught my reflection, older, harder, a face etched by years that hadn't been lived so much as endured. I stopped hoping a long time ago, I said finally, voice nearly drowned by the soft rhythm of rain. You stop hoping when you're the one who always reaches out. When you stop expecting anything, you stop getting hurt. Behind me, the silence deepened. I thought you were fine, he said. I thought you didn't need anything. That line, that cursed refrain. Like being capable was a curse. Like competence was a wall between me and love. As if being the one who didn't ask for help meant I didn't deserve warmth. Attention. Effort. I didn't turn around. That's what you never got, I said, more to the window than to him. I needed everything. I just stopped showing it. He didn't reply. And maybe that was the closest we'd ever come to the truth, me speaking it aloud and him finally having the decency not to run from it. The rain kept falling. And for the first time in years, I let it hit me. I needed a father, I said quietly. Not a checkbook. Not advice passed down like spare change. Just someone who showed up. Who gave a damn when I was falling apart. And didn't disappear when I wasn't. He didn't argue. He walked slowly back to the table and sat again. Shoulders hunched like a man trying to fold himself into something smaller. His fingers drifted through the papers before settling on a crumpled hospital brochure. One I'd scrawled on during interview day, margins filled with tiny notes and observations. He turned it over. On the back, in my own rushed handwriting, were the words, "Hope they see me. Hope I belong." He stared at it longer than the rest. Then he set it down like it had weight, like it said more than either of us ever could. "You always belonged," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I just don't know how I missed that." "You didn't miss it," I said, cool and even. "You looked away. That landed. I saw it hit." His eyes closed for a moment, and when he opened them, there was something raw there, regret, maybe, or realization, maybe both. For a second, I almost regretted being so blunt. But then I remembered the sound of the crowd cheering for other people's children while I stood alone. The empty bleachers, the champagne and smiles I didn't get. My mother's cheerful voice, full of waves and background music. Like my life's biggest milestone was an afterthought. I remembered silence, and I hardened again. He started to say something, then stopped, then tried again. "Your mother," he said cautiously, like stepping into a minefield. "What about her?" I asked, sharper than I meant to be. He hesitated. "She didn't think you wanted her there." I blinked. "What?" she said. "She felt like you'd been pulling away, that you seemed distant, like we were intruding." That stopped me cold. A bitter laugh escaped before I could catch it. "She thought I was pushing her away?" I said. "After years of cancellations, of skipped birthdays, of watching her drop everything for Christopher's latest emergency, while I was left to cheer for myself? She said she didn't think you needed her anymore." I rubbed my temples. The absurdity, the gall of it, made my chest ache in a way I didn't expect. "I stopped calling," I said, "because she never listened. Not once. I gave up trying to be heard when I realized she was only ever listening for his voice." He ran a hand down his face, weariness sinking into his bones. I think we both just got used to Christopher needing more, and we convinced ourselves you were fine, that you had it all figured out. I stepped toward him. Something inside me cracked. Not in anger, but in exasperated truth. Do you have any idea what it's like, I said slowly, to be punished for being the strong one? You don't get praise. You don't get comfort. You get expectations. And when you meet them, no one says anything. When you exceed them, they raise the bar. But the moment you stumble, they act like you failed everyone. He didn't speak, but his jaw tightened, and his eyes shimmered again. We sat in silence for a moment that stretched and stretched. The only sound the soft, persistent tapping of rain against the glass, and the clock behind me marking seconds like a slow, ticking metronome of a life already spent. Then, quietly, he reached into his coat again. This time, he pulled out a photograph. Old, faded, the edges worn like it had been handled too many times or too few. But I knew it instantly. 8th grade science fair. Me, standing beside a trifold board on antibiotic resistance. In a button-up shirt 2 sizes too big and a crooked smile that tried to mask how hard I was hoping someone noticed. And beside me, both of them, arms around me, smiling, present. I found this last week, he said. I forgot we were even there. You were so proud. I remembered that day too. Not because I won 2nd place, but because it was the last time they came for me. The last time it felt like I was the one they were showing up for. Not Christopher. Not out of guilt. Just because they wanted to. He held the photo out like an offering. Or a peace treaty. I want to do better, he said. I don't know how to fix all this. But I want to try. If you'll let me. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't expected to see. Not tonight. Mom. The message blinked up at me. Dad told me everything. Please answer if I call. We need to talk. I stared at it. My stomach curled into something sharp and uncertain. Across from me, my father sat watching, waiting. For what, I wasn't sure. Forgiveness? Permission? Some sign that there was still a bridge worth building between us. But I wasn't ready to decide. Not yet. Because whatever I said next, whatever I chose, would change everything. So I didn't reply. I didn't touch the screen. I just turned the phone over, face down on the table, and let the silence sit between us. My father was still watching me. His posture quiet, almost reverent, like a man who knew he'd long since used up every unearned grace and was now standing on the threshold of one last chance. Waiting, not with entitlement, but with the tentative hope of someone who knew they didn't deserve a yes, but couldn't bear another no. After a long silence, I finally spoke. Do you know what the worst part of all this really is? He shook his head slowly, careful not to say the wrong thing. It's not the missed graduations or the broken promises, I said. It's not even the way Christopher was always handed the spotlight, even when he hadn't earned it. I looked straight at him, voice steady but low. It's the fact that you thought I'd never stop taking it, that I'd keep making space, keep understanding, keep putting my needs behind yours, behind Mom's, behind Christopher's. You thought I'd always be the one who didn't make a fuss, who swallowed the hurt and showed up anyway. His eyes fell to the table, and when I finally stopped, I said, You were surprised. He didn't argue, didn't offer any hollow protest. That silence was its own kind of confession. I stood, walked into the kitchen, and filled a glass with water. It was mostly just something to do. My hands needed movement. My reflection wavered in the microwave door. Same hollow stare, same clenched jaw, a face carved by quiet endurance. I looked like someone who had worked so hard to build a life that he forgot he was supposed to feel it. Behind me, my father said quietly, I didn't come here to explain anything, or to defend it. I just wanted to be here, for once. I turned slowly. Why now? He blinked. What? I took a step forward, my voice sharper this time. Why now? Why this moment? After years of absence, what makes today different? Guilt? That box? He looked away for a beat, then nodded faintly. The silence. That last thing you said on the phone, that we didn't need to bother showing up to your future. At first, I didn't believe you meant it. But when the box came and then nothing, no calls, no invitations, I realized we weren't in your life anymore. At all. You were never really in it. I said. He nodded once. A grim acknowledgement. That's fair. We stood in that stillness again, the weight of years pressing down on both of us. Then, after a pause, he said, "She wants to see you." I didn't have to ask who she was. The word alone, she, was heavy with history. My mother, the woman who once bandaged my scraped knees and taught me how to whistle, who used to hum when folding laundry, who remembered the names of all my teachers, until Christopher's chaos swallowed her whole. I hadn't seen her in nearly a year. The last time she called, it was to ask if I could float Christopher some money for a deposit on a new place. No holiday greeting. No "how are you?" Just a transaction request. "I don't know if I want to see her," I said. "She wants to apologize," he replied softly. "I think she's scared. She's afraid if she opens the door now, it'll be too late." It might be. He didn't push. Just let that truth hang in the air. My phone buzzed again on the table. A second message. From her. "William, please, just talk to us. I know we failed you." I read it once, then again, and something inside me moved, not forgiveness. Not yet. But a loosening. A slow thawing of the frozen space in my chest where hope used to live. I stared at the screen, breathing quietly, then said, almost under my breath, "I'll come by tomorrow." He looked up, startled. "But if she starts making excuses? If she starts rewriting the story or blaming me for walking away?" He raised his hands. "She won't. Promise. I'll be there too." He rose slowly from the chair, unsure whether to reach for a hug or keep the respectful distance we'd maintained all night. I didn't offer a gesture. He didn't force one. He picked up the box, empty now, and slid the photo from the table into his coat pocket like something fragile he couldn't risk losing again. At the door, he turned one last time. "You're a good man, William," he said. "I'm sorry we didn't help you become one." I didn't speak, just gave a small nod. That was all I could offer. And then he was gone. The next day, for the first time in nearly 2 years, I pulled into their driveway. The house looked almost untouched by time. Beige siding, faded shutters, the same cracked walkway leading to the porch. The mailbox still hung crooked, a casualty of Christopher's careless driving during one long-forgotten summer. I killed the engine and sat there in the quiet hum of post-ignition silence. My heart was racing fast and shallow. I gripped the steering wheel like it might ground me. Then I got out, walked up the path. When I knocked, the door opened slowly. It was her. She looked older, but not in the gentle, dignified way age can sometimes bring. No, this was the brittle kind. The kind etched by regret and emotional erosion. The kind that settles in when you've lived too long pretending everything's fine. Her mouth opened, but no words came. And I stood there, not ready to forgive, not ready to forget, but ready, at last, to face it. Her hair was pulled back, but a few strands had come loose, framing her face like memory. Her hands twisted together in her lap, nervous, uncertain. "William," she said, barely a whisper, like saying my name might break something. "Hi." She stepped aside and I crossed the threshold of a house I hadn't entered in nearly 2 years. The living room was quiet. No clink of mugs, no warm scent of candles or coffee like there used to be. Just stillness. Like the house was holding its breath. We sat at the dining table. She stared at me as though trying to decipher a language she used to know, one she hadn't spoken in years. "I'm sorry," she said, before I could even settle in the chair. Her voice trembled, honest and uneven. "I know that doesn't undo anything. But I need to say it." I gave a small nod. "It's a good start." She exhaled as if she'd been holding that apology in her lungs for years. "I think I convinced myself that you didn't need me. That you were always so capable. And your brother, he needed more, or seemed like he did. So I leaned toward him. I thought I was doing what was right, but I see now it wasn't. I didn't fill the silence. I let her sit in it. It wasn't just a mistake," I said finally. "It was a choice. Over and over. You didn't just drift away from me, you walked." Tears welled in her eyes, and for once she didn't try to blink them back. "You're right," she said softly. "And I'm sorry. I was wrong. There's no excuse." For the first time in years, she didn't try to explain it away. She didn't pull out the usual lines about pressure or stress or how Christopher was fragile. She just accepted it. "I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything," she continued, voice shaky, "but I hope someday you'll let me be part of your life again. Even if it's small. Even if it's slow." I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't run. I just looked at her, the woman who once stayed up with me through fevers and spelling tests, who tied my shoelaces with whispered encouragement. The same woman who, at some point, decided Christopher's orbit needed all her gravity and let me drift. "I don't know what that looks like yet," I said honestly. "But showing up today, it matters." She nodded, wiped her eyes with the heel of her palm, and gave a trembling smile. Would you like to stay for dinner? She asked. Hopeful. Fragile. I stood slowly. Not tonight, I said. But maybe next time. That was 3 months ago. We're not some picture-perfect family now. No emotional movie montage, no miracle transformation. But there's effort. There's presence. They came to the white coat dinner I hosted for my residency program. They listened when I talked. Asked questions about my schedule. Showed up with homemade food during a string of overnight shifts. My father even called just to ask how I was doing. Not for anything. Just to talk. It wasn't everything. But it was something. Christopher didn't take it well. He called me dramatic. Said I was punishing the family for not worshiping every little thing I did. I didn't respond. I didn't get angry. I just blocked his number. I don't owe him anything anymore. And me? I'm lighter now. Not because everything is healed, but because I finally set down the weight I was never meant to carry. The burden of proving my worth to people who only loved the version of me that didn't need anything. I stopped chasing affection wrapped in conditions. And here's the truth about family, something I learned the hard way. Sometimes the only way they learn to value your presence is to feel your absence. I graduated med school alone, but I started residency with my head high, not looking for applause, not waiting for approval, just walking forward, finally free.